This is Power Athlete Radio. With your hosts, Denny K, Professor Booty, and the Luke Summers. And now, toes forward, hips locked, shoulders set, and retract those scapulars. It's time for some knowledge bombs.
Thanks for tuning into Power Athlete Radio. This week we talk with the CrossFit Renaissance man, Mike Osuna. Mike is a former Arena Football League player turned fireman and has managed to dominate South Florida since 2008 with his 6 CrossFit affiliates. To top it off, he is also the founder of the Crush Games. And although Mike is no stranger to crushing business and real life, he has also appeared as a stuntman for football movies. The show kicks off with a lively recap of the South Korea seminar, and as per usual, no CrossFit travel is without its quirky challenges. Then the crew dives right into how Mike became the czar of South Florida over the span of just a few years. Hear how he went from gym owner to franchise monopolist to running one of the most successful competitions in the history of competitive fitness. Mike's beginnings are not extraordinary, but the culture he's developed and the business he's built is truly impressive. Find out what he feels makes the biggest impact in terms of managing and growing a successful business from the members to the coaching staff. Also, find out more about the philosophy of his baby, the Crush Games, and why Power Athlete became involved in the shorter duration, high-power sub-competition, the Samson Games. There's so much to learn from this humble fireman/entrepreneur. This is Mike Osuna, and here is episode 124.
What's happening, Power Athlete Nation? Welcome to another episode of Power Athlete Radio. This is Denny. I'm here with John, Luke, and Tex. Our guest today is Mike Osuna. He's the founder and program director of the Crush Games. And I'm excited to get him on the show. Mike, thanks for taking the time to talk some shop with us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
For sure. You know what? Before we get the ball rolling, Luke, I got to ask you about that Korea trip.
Oh, I'm good because I have a story for you, Denny, and Mike, and Podcast Nation.
Let's hear it, dude.
Okay. So you may remember the Booger Crumpler from about a year and a half ago.
Absolutely.
So, Mike, to give you a brief version, I forget where I was traveling, but I was window seat, and there was this dude in the middle seat, and basically he leaned over while we took off for like 20 minutes until we got to 20,000 feet, and was picking his nose the whole time, looking out the window, legit in my lap, picking his nose and crumpling his boogers and dropping them on my lap.
That's an anxiety thing.
Oh, and I just like sat there in disbelief and like, I don't know, you can ask most of the guys here, like I'm a super patient dude, but I had another one this time. Was flying Asiana Air, and we were going to South Korea, and most of the flight attendants were Korean. And they spoke some English, but it wasn't super, like they weren't super dialed in. But I was second row from the back by design. Aisle seat so I can get up, stretch out, do some lunges and squats, stay limber. And the dude next to me on my aisle on the inside was an old, crusty, like Northern European dude or something who had very broken English. So there's two, but he spoke no fucking Korean. So there's just a huge communication barrier. And this fucking guy was so grumpy. He's got to be like 80 years old and just grumpy, like grumpy old men style.
Like you this morning at the show.
I'm still grumpy right now. You be careful. But and he's just like, I'll have a glass of water. And they're like, what, pardon me? He's like, I want some water. And, just kind of like shaking his fist at these flight attendants. And he's wearing like this members only jacket. His hair is combed back. He's got these like Sansa belt pants on.
Ooh, the Sansa belt slacks.
And just proper old guy. Like an old guy.
Did he have the old guy smell?
I think I can't smell too good, but he looked like he had the old person smell.
Like he looked like he should be a character on Seinfeld.
Yeah, like he was old.
Yeah.
Anyway, so here, let me just fast
forward.
Wrinkly shirt. He's got like a hanky.
He looked like the guy.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking
Who's
about.
the guy in Seinfeld?
Hey,
Morty.
Hey,
Yeah,
Morty.
that's what he looked
that's
like.
That's what down in Florida.
Del Boca Vista.
Yeah, down in Boca Raton.
This is the guy, okay?
That's it.
That guy. So I don't need to describe it anymore to you. So here's what happens, okay? Everything's cool. We eat, or like they serve food you're supposed to eat. I don't know. It was Asian cuisine, like all these deep fried anchovies. Long story longer. I finally get to a point where I start to doze off, and we're like 10 hours into this trip. It's a 12 or 13-hour flight, so it's like maybe we're like I almost made it, you know, and I recline. And I like to lay on my right side, so that's why I picked the aisle on the left. So I have the aisle to my left. So I'm leaning on this empty center seat with my right head, like with my head on the right side. And I doze off. I turn off the little TV in front of me, and I just kind of doze off. And I wake up to, like, just waking up. My hand brushed something furry, my right hand, and I wake up to the fucking old guy sleeping on my lap. Like he laid over and probably tried to stay like in that center seat zone, but he just kind of comfied up with his head on my lap. And his hair was amazingly soft.
I was gonna say, where was his hand?
His
Between
hand,
two pillows.
Yeah, his hands were between his legs and his pants. No, I was so fucking out of it, man. I was just so tired, and like I'm sure everyone in the world would have pushed this motherfucker off. But I was just like, oh, he looks all right down there. Dude, Texas, flying from D.C., he was probably stuck in Detroit at the time.
All right.
Yeah, Tex usually has a pretty good adventure. He usually like ends up in a middle seat for like hours with some old lady who's like crocheting and some young kid playing fucking video games, and Tex over there trying to read Super Training for the 400.
Yeah, so I had a lap layer this time through. And same thing, I just kind of let it go. I didn't really make a fuss out of it.
Wow.
What are you going to do?
Dude,
Guys,
the booger layer and the lap layer.
Yeah.
Well, the fact that when Luke told me, I'm like, did you start caressing his hair? And then as soon as he went to wake up, when he looks up at you, you just take your finger and you press it against his lips and go,
everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Go to sleep.
Yeah. Or you just throw him in a sleeper and fucking choke him out, you know?
But besides that, and Tex can, I'm sure, attest to this, because he and I, we hiked all around South Korea. The seminar was good. We had to switch it up just because language barrier, learning barrier, and just seriously, a gap in where those CrossFit gyms in South Korea are with utilizing their training to train athletes. The major sport down there is baseball, and there's not a lot of youth baseball. So there's not a lot of youth athletes and developmental athletes that are coming to CrossFit gyms.
Are they all foreigners? Are all the baseball players foreigners?
Some were Latin American. We didn't see any North American guys, but it was mostly Asian players.
But they don't have any development teams, and how do they get good at playing baseball?
I have no clue. Honestly, trying to engage in that discussion would have been a lengthy ordeal. But I'll tell you what, all of them were exceptional movers. And in terms
baseball players or the people at the seminar?
The people at the seminar.
Oh, we're all good movers.
Yeah, after you coach them up, they were capable of doing it, but they weren't necessarily capable of understanding why the cueing and keeping it consistent and replicating.
You and Tex sound pretty good. You guys hike around. When I travel with Hinsman, all she ever wants to do is go eat.
Well, that's what all we wanted to do. But here's the thing: when you're walking down the fucking alley of South Korea, every sign is a neon sign in Korean, and you're like, is this a casino, a toy store, or a restaurant? And then when you go in there, my biggest nightmare was just pointing at something on the menu and it being like your fish eye soup story, John. Yeah. Next thing you know, I'm eating squid testicles or some shit like that.
Actually, that wasn't fish eye soup. That was an Italian restaurant we went to that supposedly was serving some Italian dish. And as I go to take up what I thought was like a ravioli, almost like a stuffed ravioli they brought out for appetizers, I put it in my mouth and I feel this thing just squish and explode in my mouth. And I'm like, God, that kind of doesn't taste like any ravioli. And then when I asked the guy, I was like, well, what was it? And he basically tells me it's they were sperm sacs.
Couldn't keep their yang up.
Yeah, they were like I can't remember what the fish, or it was some fish, or I forgot what it was, but it was like something that comes from the sea. But they basically cut out these sperm sacs.
Yeah.
And then they fucking dressed them up to look like stuffed raviolis in an Italian restaurant. And these guys have heard the story, but when I was in Japan, I went to this restaurant that was an Italian restaurant, and the guy's great-grandfather had gone to Italy in like the 20s or the teens and was like assisted in an Italian restaurant, and then he came back to Japan, and then World War II hit, and like this, and they never left Japan, and he basically kept the restaurant going, and they didn't have like access to anything, so they developed all of the food and everything based off of Japanese cuisine, and then he taught the grandfather, the father, and then the son was running it, and they kept this restaurant going for like 100 years. So it was the most eclectic Italian food. Like, you're like, the names look Italian, but this is not Italian food. Like, the carpaccio was fish. But yeah, those sperm sacs, and I like put it in my mouth, and like the look just exploded, and like the guy was like looking at me, and I'm like,
it's good, isn't it?
Not ravioli. And he's like, oh no, it was a sperm sac. I'm like, you fucking bastard, you spermed it, you jerk, you fucking jizz mouthed me.
Luke, when you're presenting in front of a group like that, and you are using an interpreter, do you ever feel like, like all the bad jokes and the movie references? Like you just have like a go-to presentation for that kind of like environment, that kind of
it's
right.
Cut and dry and outline. I mean, my jokes still work. Tex really struggled. I've got my jokes have range.
Oh yeah, I got to listen to these things, and Tex is over there. Like,
hold on. So what we did is we screwed up the dialect. So Luke and I would break one sentence into two parts, and so we would say like the Human Torch was denied, and leave it like a cliffhanger, wait for the interpretation, and they would say a bank loan. But it turns out in Korea, you want to put the end of the sentence first, and we were really just screwing everything up.
And the interpreter didn't tell us until after day 2. I'm like, so how'd we do? And she's like, oh, well, the sentence structure in Korea, is reversed to what English typically is. So you had me guessing for like half the seminar.
Like Yoda, like the way Yoda talks, huh? Like,
essentially, yeah.
Wait, so give me an example of like what we would say, like how you'd structure the sentence.
Let's say Tex. I'm drawing a blank. You're the memory guy. If you want a program for strength, then you should select rep ranges within 4 to 7 at maximal loads.
And then you would say rep ranges at 4 to 7 when you program for strength.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I got you.
So
it's a little bit like Spanish. Spanish is backwards also. Like instead of saying the white horse, you say the horse white, which is weird because when you try to translate word for word, you'll get it backwards and you'll sound.
Yeah.
Huh? Mike, you're kind of creeping me out, man. I feel like we're talking to Ray Romano.
We got a Ray Romano voice.
Isn't it? I mean, am I the only one who feels like Everybody Loves Raymond moment, or no?
I think you're the only one in here who watches any television, but I'm going to go with that one. I was like, Everybody Loves Raymond.
Yeah, if it was like Courtney Cox or...
Yeah, if it was a Friends
TV. Oh, it's got to be Friends.
Over there being like, no problem.
Anyways,
I know
the world's biggest Friends fan.
It sounds like...
I want to.
Did it top South Africa?
All right, one at a time.
I was just going to say, did it top the South Africa trip?
I don't know. I mean,
just two different worlds.
Yeah, totally. It's pretty interesting. That was my first time in any sort of Asian culture that deep in, So it was definitely a culture shock for us, but.
It definitely helps, and I know when we went to Japan, we had people with us that were kind of like showed us around and took us around and translated and had been to America enough to be able to all right, let me bridge the gap and make sure we're not completely fucked. And I think with these guys, didn't really have that because for some reason, whether it was the host or whatever, when we go to a foreign country, usually the gym that we're training or what we're teaching the seminar, the hosts are usually really, really accommodating. Let me take you out. When we went to Spain, those guys were with us at every step. I mean, go here, go here. I made you a reservation, and so I think like.
But you know what? What I just remembered is they ran classes before and after the seminar. So they were running 5 a.m. classes, and they were running then 6 p.m., 7 p.m. classes. So that's why YJ couldn't go with us.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, I don't know. We could have asked the interpreter, but it was like, one babe, 2 hunks. It just would have been weird,
Yeah, it would have been
I'll tell you one funny thing. We went to a baseball game out there just to check it out, and they did a 7th inning stretch, and they stretched. Both teams went on the field, kind of did some hamstring stretches. There was no music played at all. It was really weird.
Mm-hmm.
So they literally did a 7th inning stretch, not realizing the 7th inning stretch is for the crowd.
No, it's for the players now.
It's
So lost in translation.
Yeah, they're like, oh, we stretch. It must be for the team. Like, no, you guys stretch.
Well, I mean, I guess it just to wrap it up though, and we can get on to Mike. I mean, he's the interesting one here. It was a good trip. I think we'll be back because the culture there is just in terms of like strength conditioning and CrossFit is on the rise, and a lot of the attendees said it would, the information was great. We got to come back. They have coaches that they want to get involved, so I think the demand is definitely there for another seminar. Plus, Tex and I found a street vendor that made custom suits and shirts out of the most hideous material, but it took 2 or 3 days to get them manufactured. So, but we found them on the last day. So we got to go back there and get our custom-made power athlete suits put together.
Ooh, I've been trying to talk you guys into that for a long time.
No. I don't want your fancy NFL suits.
I want Run DMC warm-ups.
my guy at the street vendor can do whatever we need. We just got to wake him up from his nap.
Yeah, nobody wants to be a gangster until it's time to do gangster shit.
So, Mike, let's hop over to you, man. So, I mean, we were, as CrossFit Football, involved in the Crush Games a little bit a couple years ago. So I know it's been going on for quite some time now. Why don't you tell us when this whole Crush Game started, what it's all about, how you become the mega location down in
Bizarre.
In Miami? What's going on? How did you do it? How can we do it over here in Southern California?
I mean, it's been a whirlwind. It's been a short 5 years, I should just say, on how quickly this whole thing came about. And I think the main reason this whole thing kind of exploded down here in Miami is not just the competition side, but the CrossFit side of it. When we opened up our boxes back in 2008, I want to say that we probably were the 3rd box opened up, and our membership skyrocketed within the first 7-8 months to about 700 members. It was crazy. It was astronomical numbers, so much so that Coach Glassman came down here and he kind of talked to me a little bit about programming, and I'm like, Coach, listen, I get it, but we have a problem that not many other boxes have. Our 8 o'clock class has 70, 80 people on the norm. This is on a Friday. It's crazy when people should be hobbled it up down here. And what we realized was that these guys were hungry for competition. They really were. In the classes, you would get the guys that, run to the bathroom to go pee or throw up, and get to the bar and they're slapping themselves in the face, and it just crazy, taking this to a whole nother level. And that year I went out to the CrossFit Games. Obviously, I was just, drowning myself in everything CrossFit. Every second counts. That's actually where I first saw John made his debut there. And then it kind of just hit us, let's do a competition and let's try to get these guys into some type of event itself. So we had a couple of connections at a casino / dog track, and it was gorgeous because it has a huge grandstand. It kind of lent itself perfectly to this event, and we had kind of no marketing, advertising. Social media wasn't that big back in those days. This was 2011. I don't even think Instagram was launched back then, but kind of had the who's who of the Southeast region come down and realize, okay, we're kind of onto something here. And from there, at that time, the CrossFit market exploded. I think I lost count a year ago, but there's over 100 boxes down here in Miami alone. You count the Tri-County area, and there's close to 250, 300. So just this area down here, John's been down here, obviously, several times. He knows what it looks like down here. It's just, it's overwhelming with as many CrossFitters and fitness-minded people that you have. So it's kind of evolved from there. What was once a one-day event with 3 or 4 workouts in itself, it's now a 3-day event with 6 workouts, and it has 8 different divisions. And then this year we introduced the Samson Games and then the Crush 5K. We saw that there was a huge market outside of the CrossFit competition itself. Guys that are into lifting basically heavy shit, and girls it's huge down here in South Florida. And then obviously the running demographic that's down here also. These guys are able to run all year round, unlike our northern friends that they're kind of like limited to several months of the year. Well, these guys just run all the time. There's hundreds of run clubs down here, people on the weekends running all over the place. And so we decided to add this other multi-fitness aspect to it with the Crush 5K and Samson. So it's really kind of taken off. Yeah, you guys were a part of it, and I'm happy that you guys are back now.
No, it's great. I mean, I look at something like this, and I know it's definitely my flavor in terms of the Samson side of things, but can competitors, you got to pick one competition, right? Or can you do like the Grand Slam and compete in everything?
Well, actually, the way that the logistics work out, you are able, and we do have a couple of people doing both of them, because Friday and Saturday, competitive fitness, so it's called CompFit, the CompFit portion of it are groundhog days. They're basically what we call qualifying days. So you either pick Friday or Saturday, whatever suits you. So some athletes chose Friday to compete in CompFit. Then they're doing Samson Games on Saturday, hoping they qualify into Sunday. So they'll actually be working out all 3 days. We've had a couple of people ask if we could push the Samson Games just a little bit later, because they want to run the trifecta and do CompFit, the 5K race in the morning, Saturday morning, then jump in with you guys in the Samson game, and then finish it off with CompFit. So I told them they just got to run faster to make it to their first heat of Samson games. So, but we have a few multi-level athletes doing both.
Wow, that's crazy. People must hate themselves. To put them through that.
They do. It's what it comes down to. Like, you gotta be mad at somebody. I always say, to be really good at CrossFit, you gotta try to prove something wrong. You gotta prove something to your dad or your mom or your high school PE coach or something. Like, I'm gonna fucking, you gotta have something dark within you that allows you to go to that dark place that often. And it's I'm glad that people are finding it. I mean, it's teaching people a lot about themselves. So it's awesome.
Absolutely. You got to find that switch. I mean, I remember I talk to my girlfriend all the time. She's a lot younger than I am. I just broke 40. But I talked to her, and she's actually one of my coaches, and she's, always ranting and raving about new members and guys that walk in and how. And I'm like, look, I just don't have that switch anymore. When I was their age, I was able to, flip it on and, bang my helmet into the locker, run out there and, beat some ass for a couple hours. That's just not me anymore. I'm happy being the guy that'll program and actually make these events happen. But it's that youth, man, something that you'll never get back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Mike, you have a background in football as well, right? That's what we share in common.
Yeah, absolutely. I played defensive end at UCF. This was, I'm dating myself now, but 95 through 98, and then I did a couple years of arena football. That was my last game was in 2003, so it's been a while. But yeah, one of those guys chasing the NFL dream as much as you possibly could until they basically grab you by the ear and say, "Hey, dude, just get out, let it go." So
yeah, they're like, "You got to go find something else." So then you went down and you became a firefighter, and then just kind of happenstanced into the CrossFit. How did you first? What was your first experience? And more importantly, like how did you get it? I mean, obviously training for football. You lifted weights, you done metabolic conditioning, you ran, and it was just kind of a natural fit.
Yeah, absolutely, and I was still training that way even during firefighting, just because it's what I did on my off days. As you know, the firefighters down here, they work 1 day on, 2 days off, so it's kind of just what you do. You go and I was training a little bit different than most guys, because I was still running hill sprints, pulling sleds, prowler push, the bench, the deadlift, all that type of stuff. And just basically one day at one of the boxes, one of the stations, I kind of floated into a station. And there was a dude and it's the conventional CrossFit story. And this guy shows me this website, I look at the workout. I'm like, are you kidding me? This is a joke. So we go outside and we do it. And I don't remember, it was thrusters and box jumps or something that looked so easy, silly. And of course, it's one of those that you get your ass kicked when you realize, holy shit, I'm not the shape that I thought I was. And immediately that I signed up for the CrossFit shirt, And then after that, I kind of just drowned myself in it. And immediately after, I was kind of playing around and doing some personal training and some speed training with some of the football players that I had from old high school. Coach reached out to me and said, hey, can you come help my guys out with some speed stuff, some stuff that I learned in college. So I went down there, started helping that out, and that kind of developed into like, I can make a couple bucks off this thing, started getting some personal clients. And then it just kind of miraculously happened where I went from training athletes to, hey, can you train my mom? She wants to lose some weight. And I was like, yeah, that'll be cool. And before you know it, I had a boot camp. And that boot camp kind of evolved into 30 or 40 moms. And then it led into elementary and junior high school. So I actually had about 7 schools that I was training in the PE area, in the recess area. And then that developed to, you keep getting rained out here in Miami at 4 o'clock. So I found a location and we opened up I Am CrossFit, and we now own 6 boxes. And it's been a whirlwind. Like I said, this started back in 2008, and it's been already 7 years doing all this stuff. And but that's kind of what kind of led me into the whole CrossFit side of it. And then I was one of those guys that just was engulfed in it, and I would travel everywhere, go to the Philly Fest, talk to as many people as I possibly could, and went to the CrossFit Games however I could make it there, whether it was a competitor or whether it was a spectator. And I kind of just swallowed the whole thing up, and I fell in love with the whole community side of it. And it crosses over with football a lot, a lot of the things. The one thing that I loved about CrossFit, and I kind of shunned away a little bit about boot camp, was that the demographic of people that you get that do CrossFit, it's a little bit more, they're rougher around the edges. Some things are a little bit more acceptable in a CrossFit gym than it is in your global or pseudo Miami type gym, where you really can't, cuss and scream and, crank up the music and that's more my style. So when you when you go into some of these high-end gyms down here as a personal trainer, and they're not even allowed to bang stuff on the floor, it's kind of just not what I was looking for. And kind of CrossFit fit that model of, okay, this is exactly like old school football minus the football part of it. So it kind of worked out pretty good.
Locker room environment, where you can kind of just say whatever the fuck comes to mind when you're banging weights and you're in the moment, right?
The thing too is I always thought Miami
so much so, and then
was such a perfect environment for it because and I've told Mike this, but I lived in Tampa for a number of years and actually lived in Miami. I lived on 17th and James down South Beach for an off season, and never have I ever been anywhere other than South America, Brazil, where people were more into what they look like, their physical appearance, like their outfit, everything. I mean, it's just like kind of that Latin vibe. And I remember we went to Brazil, and I remember we walked into this club, and all these girls were out dancing, and they were all dancing kind of facing out. And I'm like, why are they all dancing facing out? And then I realized that they were all looking at themselves in the mirror, and I was like, oh, that's my analogy for Brazil. But like, it's just like, dude, the weather's warm all year round. People don't really dress all that much, and it's just like, it just kind of is a natural fit for it. So it's competitive. You want to be in shape, and man, it just
a little bit of vanity.
I'm telling you, vanity's not a bad thing. I mean, no. This is a mortal sin, but it's not. I mean, it's alive and well in Miami.
It keeps fitness industry going.
Exactly.
So, Mike, did you always? Running those boot camps, it sounds like you kind of stumbled into it, but when you opened up that first gym, did you know that you wanted to be like a multi-location endeavor, or did that just all kind of fall into place as well?
No, absolutely. It all just fell into place. It's kind of like Coach's model that there was no business plan for this, and everything that I've kind of created has come from demand. The boxes, my Formula Supplement company, and the Crush Games have all come from a demand. Especially the boxes, the location. When we were busting at the seams. Imagine we had an 80-person class. We were getting as creative as possible. It was dangerous. At some point, there was kettlebells and bars being thrown all over the place. The crazy part about it is, and those members loved it because it's control chaos. And speaking to some members and just talking here and there, and we kind of stumbled across a guy that said, look, I got a perfect location down in Coral Gables, which is a little bit higher end where we were originally at. And he said, come check it out. It's kind of like a retail spot. And we went and looked at it. The numbers were right. We opened up the box, and in 6-7 months, you have 500 members there. So now you got 600 members in one location, 500 members for another. And you think to yourself, Jesus, this place down here is just starving for CrossFit. Back in those days, anybody that walked through the door, they see the word CrossFit, and now you got to explain to them the whole CrossFit thing. What are you doing Saturday morning? Come get a workout in, that type of stuff. And these people just love the pain. And on top of everything, we were huge into social gatherings. So every Friday night, it was some type of happy hour that we did. We did parties all the time. We beach wads, which were probably every 2 or 3 months. And then slowly but surely, there was another location that opened up in Brickell, which I would kind of say it's close to like a Manhattan type area down here in South Florida, which keeps getting bigger and bigger. It's probably 3 square miles, but everything goes up. So we found a fantastic location over there. And then just one thing happened after another. The whole thing was made possible simply because of the coaches that we had on board. We had brought on coaches that were ex-athletes, and we kind of just showed them the model, taught them, basically the way that the program should be done, and they helped us write it. And we went from one box to one box, one box, leaving those coaches behind to kind of run it like if it was their own. And it basically was, when we would go and open up another location, from everything from build out to developing the program to actually recruiting people, marketing and branding, by that time, before you know it, it's 6 months and you haven't even gone to the other box, but yet it's doing fantastic because that coach has been running it as if it's his own. So it's been 6 boxes. It's been, like I said, a whirlwind, and it's a fantastic, but it's crazy down here. There's probably a box every square mile down here in Miami. If you guys come down here, I'll show you. There's a rock throw away from every single one of my boxes. There's just another box just right down the street, and they're all thriving. They're all doing well.
That's I was having a conversation with somebody, not, there wasn't that much of a competition, but in that conversation, like, I remember old school Glassman article where he was talking about how it's almost like you're encouraging somebody to open up a gym across the street because it'll just kind of make you better. And I always liked that, but then I've had conversations with people who are like, man, there's just too many gyms in the area, it's too difficult. So they had a totally different perspective on that. It sounds like you're kind of like the former of that you develop better gyms because of the competition. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I would say there's a little bit of both. It's a double-edged sword, on the business side of it. When it comes to the straight downright dollar, it obviously hurts your box, because if a box opens up, 3 square miles, that's our whole thing. It's a radius of 3 square miles is what we look at when we try to figure out what's a good location for another box or for a potential box. Is what does a 3 square miles radius look like? Because the more that this CrossFit community grows, the more option that these people are going to have. Miami traffic is an absolute. You will bypass 2 or 3 boxes for a couple of months before you stop into a new location that you haven't been yet, that you start hearing about, whether through friends, Instagram, and whatever. Go try a Saturday class over there. You go try a Saturday class, and then you go try a Tuesday evening class, and all of a sudden it's closer to your house, and so on and so forth. And the programming might be similar. So before you know it, you lose that member or you gain that member, depending on what side of the coin you're on. So in that aspect, it hurts the bottom dollar, because now you have, if you have a box that opens up a mile under members, 100 of those members go over there just because it's more convenient, or they they have an opening registration price, and people are always looking for the cheaper dollar, and members themselves don't necessarily know the difference of programming. Or maybe they just downright have a better facility. Maybe they have a global gym next to you. Maybe they have a sauna. Maybe you have something else, something more accessible. So when it comes to the programming, the competitive side of it, absolutely, you got to be on your A game, because what you're not doing, they'll do. Whether it's marketing, whether it's branding, whether it's programming, whether it's the actual strength and conditioning program, which is the social part of it, the developing a community or whatever it may be. If you're doing it, they're going to do it. The one thing I constantly, how do you open up multiple boxes? How do you keep your membership so high? One, it's luck. The luck, location, or the two. If you've done wrong, I tell people that my value doesn't really come by what I could tell you to do. It's what I could tell you not to do, because we've done so many things wrong in the past that we realized, okay, that doesn't work, or that class, weighs more than this class do you need a boot camp aspect? Because a lot of these CrossFits down here in South Florida, they have a boot camp side of it. Because as much as you try to market to the competitor side of it, and then there's the girls that will never, ever, ever walk into a CrossFit gym simply because it says the word CrossFit on it. Not understanding that, okay, this is obviously universally scalable, and we could lower the movements and the intensity level to fit your needs, and then slowly we're going to ramp you up without you actually knowing it. But they just won't step foot in it because they're so these boxes do a boot camp class. And it's all it is simple filter. They titrate you into this boot camp class. They'll do some dumbbell movements on and so forth. 3 or 4 weeks, they, walk in and, hey, let me show you the clean and jerk. Let me show you a snatch. Oh, this movement's great. Before you know it, they walk into CrossFit and they absolutely love it. It's just getting them through the door, The one thing that we try to do, and we teach our coaches this all the time, is just like Glassman used to say, is when they come in and they ask about CrossFit, just tell them to stick around or come into a Saturday morning class. Our Saturday morning classes are free classes on Saturdays. They're scaled down for the general public. There's no bar movements or any of that stuff going on. We put on a fun, happy community type workouts just to kind of get them feeding in here. And then we start kind of titrating them into the Olympic lifts and the power lifts and all that type of stuff. But you still get all the conventional wisdom, especially in Miami. You get all the conventional wisdom and all these myths, string gig and, the Hulk gene and all that stuff. You got to kind of coax them out of it. So I see both sides of it, especially now going into my 8th year and owning the 6 boxes. I've seen the ups and downs in the market. Some of our boxes still thrive. Others, struggle depending on their location and stuff like that. But it's great for the actual member. That's who it definitely benefits, is the actual member, because one, they're getting, it's not a monopoly anymore. They have options. They have options of location. They have options of pricing. They have options of coaches, because so many coaches are so knowledgeable down here that are level 1 certs, level 2 certs, guys that are looking for their level 3s. And then it gives them the variance. They are able to bounce from box to box. Many boxes down here don't have contracts. It's not like a global gym. So they're able to go from box to box until they find one that suits their need. There might be one with a great Olympic program just because they have, great Olympic lifting coaches, other guys with power guys, other guys with gymnasts. So it just depends on what they kind of fall into and let them do. It gives them the option. So it's definitely great for the CrossFit community as a whole down here. As a business, it's just like everything else. If I own a sushi restaurant and you own one and you open up across the street, you're going to dilute me a little bit, and then we're going to kind of be going after, the almighty dollar and seeing how we could, kind of outbeat each other. It's the same thing across the board.
Mike, good help is hard to find. So you said a little bit in the beginning when you found some coaches, they were former college athletes. What process do you have in place to develop new coaches? Because it still sounds like y'all are growing pretty well.
Yeah, it's kind of, I've developed the model that we've created kind of from the fire department. In the fire department, you have your battalion chief that kind of oversees everything. Then it goes down to the district chief, then your station captain, and then the lieutenant and the medics underneath it. It's kind of developed into the same way. When we first started, everything, from the blogging to the programming, the coaching from early in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, all the way to late at night, so on and so forth. So I was doing it all. So I made a lot of things work more efficiently, only because I was the only one handling it. And then I started to realize I cannot continue to do this day in and day out, obviously with the multiple boxes that we are going to own and my career as a fireman. So I started bringing in coaches to help me out. And one of the first coaches that we brought on was on the academia side, was an exercise physiologist. And she kind of helped me program a little bit better. I went to a lot of the CrossFit specialty shirts, and I learned some more from that. And I also kind of worked around the logistics side. So bringing these coaches on board, slowly teaching them exactly what to do on the logistics side, and then helping them out with the programming. I created a programming team, so giving these coaches more responsibility, which they were hungry for. They wanted to program these workouts. They wanted to put their name under the workouts, only because they felt a sense of responsibility and contribution. So they started coming on board, and that slowly titrated to the fact that we kind of had about 7 coaches on staff. Some of these coaches were paid coaches. Other were coaches like, look, just take care of my membership. I'll coach 2 or 3 classes. I'll help out there too, because these wear a shirt that said coach. We had some of the guys that came on, ex-baseball players, that came on board that knew a lot of exercise and phys. More academia side board. They fell in love with the CrossFit side of it. And then we opened up the next gym. And when we opened up the next gym, I left and I opened was there, kind of doing the same thing, developing the actual gym structure, and then I went to the next one. So that's kind of how it worked. Was I want to say that left in my wake were these great coaches. Now what we have is just over 51 coaches, and each one of these coaches are 10 times smarter than I'll ever be. These guys have fallen into the, one of these guys have left their jobs, gone to universities to get a degree in exercise phys and to become a certified strength and conditioning coach. They've all done, whether it's a gymnastics side of it, but we have a guru, if you would, an expert probably in every field, because these guys just kind of fall in love with this whole thing, you know. When it comes to the actual model of the developing these guys, you know, we've had coaches with us for 7 years now. They've been either a member that I put through the pipeline, because we throw everybody through a pipeline. We usually hire, for the most part, through our members. And the first thing that I look for is a personality, is somebody with a personality. I've met many coaches out there that are highly intelligent and know exactly what they're doing, but they don't know how to talk to people. They don't know how to relay that message. They're either extremely rude or they're bottled up and they're scared about talking in front of people. So even if you have all this information inside of you, if you don't have a personality to go along with it, it's difficult. It's difficult to be a coach down here, especially as you guys know, is you're turning around and you're talking to 40, 50 people. That's intimidating to a lot of people. And a lot of these guys do better on a one-on-one basis. So that's where we kind of view them and go, okay, this guy's good as the class leader. That guy's more as the one-on-one coach type of thing. And we kind of just let it play itself out where these guys kind of find their holes and it just blossoms from there. We've had one of our coaches that's been with us for close to 6 years that he's not the head coach. He's just kind of like the B guy, but he enjoys being that role. He's the softer, more intelligent, soft-spoken guy that prefers the one-on-one personal training type thing, as opposed to the rah-rah sis-boom-bah guy that's doing, you know, box jump overs as he's explaining the WOD type of thing. So we kind of just let the personality develop itself and then see if these guys have a passion from it, and then they kind of just take it from there.
Sounds like a significant undertaking, but it's you know, it's pretty cool that you were able to carry over a lot from what you were doing in the firehouse over into the gym. And that's almost the exact same thing I did coming on to Balboa and Power Athlete. Coming from my corporate gig, I come over to this place, there's absolutely no procedural documentation, and I about shit my pants. I'm like, how the fuck am I supposed to remember any of this? A, because I have no short-term memory. I'm like the guy from Memento. Like, I have to get shit tattooed. And then B, for anyone...
Which is funny, because then you fucking try to pin me down on shit. I'm like, you have worse memory than I do.
Well, that's why I write everything down. That's why you need operational documentation.
That's why he's like, we had a conversation. I'm like, you didn't remember that.
But so I used to sit around and just work. John would try to educate me on the ins and outs of the seminar, and anyone who's been to this thing is like, there are so many moving pieces depending on where the dials are set and what questions being asked and what portion of the lecture you have to deliver with a certain type of personality or ethos, or you have to deliver certain information. And it's just it was overwhelming, and that's exactly what I'm like, dude, there's no way we're gonna be able to replicate this. So I just started kind of writing everything down and trying to organize it, sift through it like I was at my old fucking corporate gig. But
right. When we were developing, and we're kind of the same way over here, when we were developing these coaches, like I said, all these guys were just turning around and talking to a class of 50 people. I mean, you're talking to lawyers, doctors. We had some, pretty well-off people, members, and they were just fearful to turn around to these guys. So I used to just next to them and just say, hey, listen, scratch your nose when you need me to jump in. If you get cold feet, if something happens, you forget the WOD, I'm there for you type of thing. Just give them this sense of security type. So it just took some development. One of the guys that we have here with us now, his name is Sergio Garcia. He's an ex-major leaguer. This guy's been with us for 7 years now. And the guy started off, I mean, he couldn't remember his name when he was, and he's going to kill me for saying this, but he couldn't remember his name when he would turn around and talk to the members. And it was intimidating. You have 50 or 60 people in the class. Now the guy's one of the best coaches here in South Florida, and he's absolutely loved. And he could remember not only your name, but your grandma's name, if you got a haircut, that your dog died a month ago. Like, this guy is fantastic. He's everything. If there's a checklist for coaches, this guy is all of them marked off because he's absolutely greatest personality you've ever seen. He's a tremendous athlete, and he's, you know, what he fills every void that there is, and that's kind of, they're hard to find. But by him alone, anytime I have a coach that comes through the pipeline, I send him to Sergio. He's the first line of defense, and within a week, Sergio could look at me and either give me the thumbs up or thumbs down, just say, nah, this guy isn't going to cut it. He just doesn't fit the mold. Other guys, he says, yeah, he's going to need a little bit more development. But Sergio down here in Miami, he's the man.
How long are the classes? Are they the typical 1 hour? Because damn, dude, so, yeah, 50 or 60 people.
Yeah, so the days of 50 or 60 are long gone. That used to be on the norm. And the beginning, say in an average of 20 to 30 members a class, they are to do the work of it. They are all an hour long. They're morning classes, just like most gyms across the country. We have a break from 1 to 4 o'clock when most of our coaches do either personal training sessions or they train on their own, and then they start up again at 4 o'clock, 4:15. Then it's every hour on the hour. And the way that our coaches have enough time to do a warm up and a cool down is, it's like an orchestra, man. These guys are just, you know, running in and out. One's taking the 4, the other one warming up the 5. One's cooling down that class. Another one has an Olympic class or a competitor's class going on. It's a sight to see, because an outsider walk into the box and it is overwhelming, and we try to intercept them as quickly as we can because it's scary. You know how it is. Bars banging, guys are shirtless, people are screaming on the radio. So it's trying to catch people before they walk out to let them know, hey, listen, we're not a bunch of freaks. These are your average Joe in here. This is just kind of the way that we run our program. But it does get kind of chaotic, and it's taken a lot. You know, about 3 years ago, I was keen micromanager. I was a nightmare to deal with because I was on top of every coach, starting on time, making sure you did a warm-up, making sure you got the classes done. Everything had to be done by the end of the class. Now these guys, they run the show. I basically walk into the boxes now, hey, do you need toilet paper? Anybody die? We're all good. What do you guys need? And I walk out. That's literally how it's become over here, because these guys are so experienced here. And you get resumes, and I'm sure you guys get it over there too. You get resumes once a week. Everybody down here in South Florida is a CrossFit Level 1. Hell, I must have hosted a good 14 CrossFit Level 1 shirts through our IM location. Dave is hitting me up. They're just popping them out a dime a dozen down here. So there's no shortage of CrossFit coaches down here.
Mike, I just sent you my resume. Heads up. So it sounds like the approach that you took with developing coaches, reaching out to Ollie guys, sports-specific guys, baseball guys, whoever it is, it sounds like you're taking this approach with the Samson Games and finding the best coaches in the world and helping them develop this high-quality competition.
Absolutely. That's the route that we took. You know, our director of the Samson Games name is Hugo Ruiz, and this is one of these powerlifting, you know, maniacs. And does the West Side, does everything in the books. And I reached out to him and I said, hey, listen, there's an event that I want to bring on. It's called the Samson Game. It's a huge undertaking. I'm looking to bring in a hybrid of powerlifting, a little bit of CrossFit football, and some strongman movements into it. I go, it's not going to be one of each. It's going to be just a little bit of sprinkled so that the big, strong guy and girl could come in here and just lift some heavy stuff. I said, the way that we have to do this is we have to reach out to the best of the best. We have to reach out to guys that are well-known and have a reputation for knowing what the hell they're doing, and let's reach out to these guys and have in mind. And I'm like, well, John Wellborn. I mean, I can't think of anybody else but the guys from Power Athlete HQ to come on and collaborate with this guy. I go, it's not a marketing ploy. It's not a sponsorship. It's a collaborator. Like, let's send these guys workouts, let them give feedback, tell them whether one sucks or we're going to kill somebody or it's too light or it's too weak. And let's really reach out to these guys and see how this thing goes. They've been a part of it, and he absolutely, any opportunity that he had to be able to work with you guys and John and Rob Orlando, he jumped on board. He literally was all over ecstatic, and he's done a phenomenal job. Hugo's done a great job of keeping in touch with everybody, making sure that, you know, the WODs are, the events are taken care of, and the logistics are done, and the equipment. So it's been quite the undertaking, but there's no way that I would have launched this thing without collaborating with guys that have a foothold of this community, which is you guys and Rob and Logan and those cats.
John, how did you respond to that? Because I'm sure you get people all the time that want you to write specific programs for them or or something like that?
For a long time we did our own version of the contest. We did our Power Athlete Team Series. We did the Occupy Strength and a couple different things. And I think what we realized in doing that is to really, I think, like get good market share. And it was just kind of my own step back where I looked at it and thought, you know what, we can chase our tail, or we can take a step back and maybe go and talk to a couple people about sponsoring some events. And as we were talking about that, Mike hits me up on this, and I'm like, oh my God, it's timing. It was just incredible timing because one, it was really a global event. If you take a look, I mean, if you think about CrossFit and really what's happening right now with this kind of functional fitness environment, you have, the pinnacle, I guess, or the top of the heap would be something like the CrossFit Games. But the CrossFit Games is very narrow in terms of the amount of people that actually get to participate and take forth, and it's not really the everyman's contest. It's kind of it's a test for the fittest man on the planet, and if you're going to make the claim that we're testing for the fittest man on the planet, it better be extremely hard. And I think where there's a huge amount of market share is things like the Crush Games and the Granite Games and these other almost like bigger kind of more
pro-am,
fitness,
like a pro-am,
like a pro-am in many ways. And really kind of talking about this, Mike hit us up, and I've known Mike for a long time. I mean, having met him over a number of years, we've done seminars down there, and Miami's always been near and dear to my heart. So it just was kind of a natural deal. And when he brought it to us, like, hey, I actually want to do some form of actually dedicated day like the Samson Games, and not just like a CrossFit football inspired workout, because we've had those over the course of the years. I mean, I remember even as early as 2009. One of the regionals before it was standardized workouts had CrossFit Football Total and like 3 or 4 workouts that we designed for them. So this was really nothing new to us. And at the end of the day, we don't really have to look to try to get lightning strike. I mean, these guys have already done a great job, and they're on it. So I was more than happy to join up with somebody who's not only an established guy, but an ex-football player who understands what we're trying to do and what we're about. And I'm stoked. And actually, I'm going down to the Crush Games here next week, and or is it next week? Yeah, 2 weeks.
2 weeks, not this week. Following weekend.
Following weekend. And so I'll be down there.
So this will be. People will be listening to this right as you're traveling down.
So the way it's scheduled out. So we'll be there, and I think Bobby and I are going down there. We're going to hang out and officiate this thing and see how it goes and lend a hand, and anything we got to do. We got to go out there and slap people in the face, spit in their mouth, howl at the moon, and help get people ready. We'll do whatever we can do.
Yeah, Mike, I don't know, this wasn't part of the original rider agreement, but John has insisted that he is the roaming referee, and he's like Terry Tate, the office linebacker, but he's going to be John Welborn, the pit judge. And if he doesn't like what anyone's doing, he's just going.
I fucking told somebody at a seminar, I was like, if I ever see you do that again, I'm just going to tackle you in the fucking back, and I'm probably just going to fucking snap your spine. And the guy looked over at me, and later on he was like,
what did I do?
I kind of wasn't sure if you were kidding or not, and he went to laugh, and I was like, I wasn't fucking kidding. I would have literally fucking broken your spine if I saw you do it again. And he was and he just kind of shook my hand and went away. I was like, awesome.
I would absolutely love that. When we Hugo and I spoke about bringing on Power Athlete HQ, I had met John several times at some seminars that we had done, and when I reached out to John and he told me that this kind of fit exactly in what I was super stoked, because the programming itself for Samson Games are these short, less than 2-minute type stuff of pulling, pushing, dragging.
Sounds like Luke Summers' sex life.
It's not like my sex life.
I was going to say less than 2 minutes. I was like, sounds like Luke Summers' sex life.
Let me explain something. It's a universal time domain. I'm talking I can eat chips in 2 minutes. I can, I get things done in 2 minutes. That's what I do. What do you want me to do? Give me 2 minutes, I'll get it done. And then if it takes longer than that, I'm worthless.
Well, it's this will be right up your alley. You'll do perfect in this. But one of the things that I had to introduce, and Hugo, the first thing he asked me, said okay, pick a WOD, and I said NFL Combine bench press. I mean, it just took a second for me to say that, because it had to be a part of this thing. We did a year and a half ago. We got hired by Disney to run the Disney Fit Challenge, and it was basically a CrossFit, without using the word CrossFit competition at Disney, at ESPN World of Sports. And I said, you know what, let's throw in, and we did it there. We did a broad jump, and we did a bench press. And it was probably the most popular exciting event there. Guys because you see it on TV and you see these monsters and you say, okay, 3 times, but how many people actually lay under a bench and say, okay, let's throw 225 and see how many times you do it? So it's not a relative until you actually have to lay underneath that bar and realize that you only did it 4 times to see how big and strong these monsters are pushing this thing 20, 30, 40 times. So I'm going to be excited. I would probably stop everything that I'm doing during that event at the Samsung Games to see these guys get under the bar, and I wouldn't be surprised if John jumps under there either.
You would have done that bench press, big guy.
Yeah, I just saw something fall down on the floor. It was like a challenge.
I'll tell you what, there's something primal or like hardwired in. Maybe it's just guys who played football, or because when we used to program 1-arm bench days on Fridays at Balboa, people would show up and like it was like Vladimir spitting in mouths and shit like that.
You know what? Like I'll tell you this. I think a lot of people, and this is not a knock on it, but like the CrossFit things really kind of shit on the bench press and this, and it's just the non-functional, and which is so retarded that there was like a backlash against the fact that people in gyms actually do the bench press. So then there was like a backlash over the years. But I had somebody tell me once before that a bench press wasn't functional, and I was like, well, define functional, because you obviously never played football, because if you had, you would know that your hands, your ability to drive your hands in that movement is very functional. But I also came to the conclusion that the people that don't really like the bench press are the people that are not good at the bench press. Right? Because, I mean, I've never met anybody that was good at the bench press that was like, yeah, I don't really like it. It's kind of useless. I mean, I bench 500 pounds, but I don't like to do it.
Or, like, have a situational appreciation. So, like, when me and Tex are bench pressing, he doesn't like it because he knows I'm going to out bench him.
I remember going
Luke, any press, I got you, man.
Any press. All right.
Challenge.
I remember when I went to my first CrossFit football cert, and it was advertised that they were going to have the 225-pound bench press contest. That was like part of it, right?
And we did it.
Fired up. I trained, and when we got there, we didn't do it.
Well, we actually did it for a number of years, but the bench press was kind of this floater deal, where if things didn't go completely off the fucking rails, we would do it. If things went off the rails, we didn't do it.
Which means if they went off the rails, you got better information. Like,
yeah, it was like I actually remember the last time we did it, we were in Canada, and there was a guy who was like a bodybuilder that had like doing some CrossFit stuff, who showed up his wife, who was like a bikini figure girl. And, they were pretty, out of, having done a lot of these CrossFit, they were a little out of sorts, but they were kind of into it. We fucking lay down for that 225 bench, and the dude does it 43 times.
Oh, my God.
Oh, shit.
Like he did it like it was nothing 43 times, which pretty much would set the combine record. And I remember thinking to myself, that's the last time we're ever gonna do it. We capped it.
Because if they beat us, we don't do it anymore.
That was the last time. And the other key factor why we stopped doing it is we would go to gyms that would have, we got 20 people at the seminar that would have one bench press. And you know how long it took people to run them through, and like that's why we ended up going to the floor press and like a lot of the stuff. So if we went to a gym that had 20 benches, we'd probably be in on it, but it just doesn't fit that way.
How did you do it? Did you just let like one person take like one shot and go, or was it like how you used to program it in CrossFit football? You're like, take 2 attempts and, give me the best out of the 2.
Dude, the way we used to do it was straight up, and Luke called it high school football style. So we would warm everybody up with some push-ups, and we give them like a little bit of like go, and like we had people be like, all right, do you want 135, 185, or 225? And so usually the girls could like pick a weight if there was a couple chicks there. And then like, we let some people go. And then when we got to 225, it was straight up high school football. We would form a ring around the bench. You would lay down and like start going, and people would be counting the reps, fucking screaming and yelling.
It's a good day to die.
Oh, dude, it was straight up like something out of a movie. And then they'd rack it up, and you just go in there cold.
You know what's crazy? I bet you the people that come to our seminar these days, maybe 20% have ever experienced that event. You know what I mean?
So when we did the original, so like this sounds kind of crazy, but CrossFit, Greg Glassman, offers me the idea of doing CrossFit football. on right around like the February 28th, like the end of February. We launched CrossFit Football, the website, March 31st. So it was 30 days between when, hey, John, you should do CrossFit Football, to where I created the website, created a program, did everything, and launched it. And that first day we launched, we had like 17,000 hits in 100+ countries. And then that was, let's say, April 1. And then May 17th, which was exactly like 6 weeks later, we had our first seminar, which was like a tester. And I had to sit down and create this whole seminar. And it was, I reached out, I had hit up Andy Stumpf to help me. And then it was Ruiz for the sprint stuff. And then Kelly Starrett was on my original seminar staff. And then we had one other guy.
Yeah, you initiated Kelly, did you not?
Yeah. So actually, Kelly came to my seminar and was really good, so much so that they offered him his own seminar, which he had been trying to get for a long time. So Kelly had presented the idea of a seminar numerous times. They kind of shot it down. He presents it me once, and he gets his own seminar. So if it hadn't been for me, Mobility WOD would have been non-existent. But so I had to create this seminar. And I remember hitting up my brother Ed, and my brothers all played football, and they were at that first seminar. And I remember my brother Eddie was like, "Dude, just fucking make it like a high school football, like a high school locker room, like a college locker room." He's like, "Get in there, let's talk about it, let's watch film." And we used to actually watch film, which was even funnier. I used to put up a highlight tape of different athletes, including myself, and we would like have a film review watching football players play, because I had this idea that if we could watch film, I could show people what athleticism was. And then it was kind of this utopian idea that like we can sit down and watch cut-ups, we can do change of direction, movement, all these other key factors. And if you see athletic people do things, you can stop and start pointing them out, because I got sideline and end zone type stuff. And then I came to the conclusion, which is pretty interesting. Like I had this idea that like if I can show people what this is and I can teach them the movements, it's kind of like teaching like a language. If I can teach you the letters and if I can teach you the tone, let's say if you're going to speak Korean, you should be able to speak Korean, which we know is not the case. Which we know that movement is actually a language in itself, and that it's very difficult to teach somebody the language of movement that doesn't already understand it. So that was that kind of idealistic kid that was going to come in and fucking take people that weren't necessarily athletes and teach them to do something athletic. And so we taught that first seminar, and we got some really great reviews, and that was 7 years ago, and it's been evolving ever since. And it was a pretty great seminar until Luke Summers came on and started fucking standardizing everything. And
operational manuals.
Yeah, like there was no more shooting from the hip. But I knew we had to do that when Ruiz came in and gave a 45-minute talk on time travel and the margin of error in flying to Mars.
Yeah.
At that point, I was like, dude, we gotta.
Listen, if you can't make that connection, you shouldn't be.
Oh no, it was a 45-minute talk talking about like the Mars landing, and like people were just kind of like put their pencils down, confused, and they were like, "What's this have to do about anything?" He's like, "Nothing. I just thought it was interesting." I'm like, "Oh, we gotta standardize." We didn't lose everybody.
No.
John, you guys are actually hosting a seminar down here on October 17th and 18th at our Doral location, correct?
Yeah.
I got those dates correct, no?
Yeah, that's right.
We the last time you guys came down here, I was actually on shift and I couldn't get it off, and then we sent Lauren Brooks to your event in somewhere up north in Florida, like I want to say like on the East Coast. And she ranted and raved about the absolute. She actually asked us if we could get her out to California to train with you guys. That's how much she absolutely loved it. And she, hands down said it's the best seminar she's ever been to. And I think you guys are doing some programming for her and stuff like that. So she'll be at the Crush Games. You guys will be able to see her there Saturday.
Nice. Is she competing or is she just kind of like spokesmodeling?
She is spokesmodel. That's exactly what I call her these days. She's spokesmodel.
She's a spokesmodel. She shows up in this way for the land.
She is. She has her own calendar and everything. She's doing great. She's a good friend of mine, and she's coming out here. She's supporting. She's actually emceeing some events.
Oh, nice.
So she's going to be out there. Absolutely. She's
No, I think me and Laura Brooks should be the future of CrossFit Games emceeing.
Oh my God! I watched you MC once.
Yeah, it was amazing.
You were sweating so bad. I've never seen anybody sweat that bad. Yeah, do you know how hot it is in Florida? There's a lot of humidity. I don't know if you'd make it. But no, that's good for her. How's she doing? She's been a little banged up, so hopefully she can round the corner and clean up some of those injuries and get back into the fight with the CrossFit stuff, huh?
Absolutely. She had a bad hammy injury in regionals that kind of knocked her out of the whole competition there and stuff. But she's training. She was telling me her training regimen the other day. I kind of fell asleep halfway through it. It was just like 4 hours and that was just her explaining what the regimen is like. And her diet's on point. She sends me her daily menu and stuff like that. But she's doing very well, and she's going to be down here. She's excited, and I'm sure she's going to be even more excited when she finds out that you guys are coming down here. And I could probably get her on a bench press also because it's her hammy, it's not her arm. So see if we could get her to do one of those and stuff. But she's coming down with the Killcliff boys. The Killcliff guys came in, and they're title sponsors of the Crush game. So you'll see all of them down here too. But it's fun.
Yeah, Mike, just going back to the competition and the workouts and choosing them, I love the 225 bench press test. And I'm curious, like, what is your vetting process for why? With more and more competitions popping up, we're seeing just these over-the-top, outlandish, crazy workouts just for competitions trying to make a name for themselves. So what's the thought process breakdown between you and all your coaches for the borderline between creative and prudent?
Yeah. I think our underlying model is keep it simple, stupid. You know, I could totally agree with you. I see some of these competitions out there doing some, it's almost irresponsible. And every single event that we put out to our competitors gets tested and retested. And the one thing that I promise our scorecard maker is that I will stop looking at the workouts because I constantly go back and forth on if we should up it 5 pounds, lower the risk, increase the intensity, what have you. So a lot of our workouts are simply singles, couplets, triplets. We put a time cap on every single one of our workouts of 10 minutes. We don't allow anybody to work past 10 minutes. We try to test their fitness level in that 10 minutes, and we also their skill level along with their strength. The last thing that I ever want in any of my competitions is anybody getting hurt. We look at the overall macro view of the programming and to make sure that we're testing as many modalities as possible. And then we look at the micro view. So we pick apart every single workout that we have to see if favors the strong guy, what portion of it favors the skill guy, and then which one could get the endurance guy an advantage. I then turn around and I turn to one of my coaches, Rob Silver, that's probably experienced and academia-wise, probably the most knowledgeable of us all. And he's our safety officer, quote unquote, if you will. And he looks at these workouts and he'll tell me, look, this is taxing the posterior chain. This might, people hyperextend their back. You might get a guy with, shoulder problems. So you got to look at their standard individually. So these guys, Rob picks them apart and he gets back to me and then we make some changes. So it is a 6th to 7th month process of creating these workouts to make sure that they're fun, they're resulting in the right person finishing on top of the leaderboard, and that it lends itself well for spectators, that spectators could actually see who's in the lead. So that's a logistic thing that we got, that we base a lot of our programming on. So they're just not standing in one spot doing rep after rep and you kind of lose track of. The technology nowadays with rep counters and the training of the judges, that has made this a lot easier. But I think that the biggest responsibility that we have, people are going to go out to these competitions, and whether they could do it or not, they're going to take a chance on a lot of these movements. I'd rather be called safe rather than risky. I'd rather make sure that there's not a bar or piece of equipment near anybody that could get themselves hurt. If it doesn't make sense, we don't do it. A lot of these competitions out there, they are up and coming and they're popular and they get big names that go out to them. But I look at returning athletes, how many people keep going back to the competition, what does the feedback look like? We usually put together a group of almost a review board, if you will, after the competition. So sponsors, athletes, judges, and we just ask them to give us some feedback. What can we do better? What sucked? What was great? Would you come back? That type of stuff, just so we could keep getting it better and better and growing, But we did it across the board. We did it with ConFit, we did it with Samson Games, and then our Crush 5K. If you look at the divisions there, it's everything from our charity, which is Blossom Therapy. It's for children with illnesses. it's just a run walk, and then we have an actual race, so you fall into the species. So across the board, we're trying to make this competition lend itself well to not only the athletes but the spectators. It's a process. It is it's an undertaking that not a lot of people can follow through. I've seen a lot of competitions come onto the map and call themselves the biggest and the best, and some of them rise and other them just fall. You don't hear about them anymore because it is a lot of work, and it's a fun endeavor, and it's something that we've been blessed to have support from our sponsors and our judges. So it's exciting, year number 5 right around the corner, 9 days away.
Well, Mike, I'll tell you what. I'm going to meet you real quick here because we're getting a lot to go. I'll tell you what, whatever you're doing down there is working, because I've been getting the sponsorship pack for the past few years, and I mean, just involvement from athletes and sponsors and even spectators is growing like seemingly exponentially. And I'll tell you what, if anyone's down in that area, go check out the games. I know it's everything's probably all sold out, but we're going to be down there. Check out the CrossFit Football Power Athlete experience. We're going to be up there giving a little 30-minute clinic. You'll be able to sign up on location. But get out there, and I guess we probably should wrap it up right about now. We've been on for just over an hour. It's been great conversations, some good stories, and it's been a pleasure having you on, Mike. So anything else you want to leave any of our listeners with on places where they can go and check it out, sign up, or check it out for next year?
Yeah, they could come check it out. It's www.thecrushgames.com. Killcliff is bringing down a huge family fun zone, so the whole family could come down. We have a tent city, so it's a 3-day festival where people could camp out, come meet the boys at CrossFit Football, and there's a bunch of spectator challenges going on. So Michelob Ultra was one of our sponsors for you beer drinkers out there, so it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited about it.
Nice. Mick Ultra is that's the healthy Gatorade beer.
Yeah. It's the healthy Gatorade. Yeah, we like it. We're good.
All right,
so
guys.
High fructose corn syrup?
No, don't worry about that. But all right, guys. Well, let's wrap it up. And for those of you listening to this, I think what do we get? 150,000 downloads within the first 10 minutes of release. So if you're one of those 150,000 people, head to the fucking Crush Games, get a Mick Ultra, and go arm wrestle Bobby Goodfellow, because that's one of the spectator fucking challenges.
And if Lauren Brooks beats you with the bench press, don't be upset. She's
yeah, she is a proper athlete. So, all right, guys. Well, let's call it. I'll talk to you guys next week.
Cool.
See you.
Thanks a lot, Mike.
Later, guys. Thank you.
Yep. See you soon.
Now it's time for you to empower your performance. The Crush Games is an annual competition in South Florida, and although this year's event is next weekend, if you're thinking of getting involved for 2016, do not hesitate. Visit www.thecrushgames.com for all the information you need, including the endurance competition, the CrossFit events, and our favorite, the Samson Games, a competition for true power athletes. If you want to know what kind of music motivates Mike Osuna to keep crushing life and business, visit the blog post for this episode on PowerAthleteHQ.com for that Spotify playlist. Until next time, bye!